Hello, thank you for coming to St. James Cathedral today. I'm Robbie Ellis. This is the pre-concert talk for the concert starting in half an hour's time. This is the Rush Hour concert series, free chamber music here in St. James Cathedral every Tuesday until August 20-something or other. My phone has a calendar, I don't need it in my head. I have with me two members of the Kontras Quartet plus composer Stacy Garrop on the stage, and hello, Jean Hatmaker, cellist. How are you doing today?
Doing super. Happy to be here, Robbie.
Happy to be here. Francois Henkins as well, who's second violinist. Francois, well, actually, either of you, what's the Kontras Quartet been up to since the last time? I think you last played the series 2 years ago. Yeah. Yeah.
A lot. I mean, in addition to touring and just our regular concert season, we've had this ongoing album we've been threatening to release, and we're just continuing to work on that now. So at this point, we're anticipating hopefully an early or mid-fall release. But yeah, that's been the big side project.
Have you actually tracked the album? Have you actually recorded it?
Yes.
Oh, well, that's a good start.
Yes, it's in the can.
It's in the can. You got
it's 80% of the way there.
Agonize over all of the edits, and that'll take the next 5 years. Yes. Yeah. Well, this is a very, it's an off the beaten track program here, predominantly American, not exclusively so, and with the greatest of respect, no composers who are classical canon household names. Is that?
Not yet.
Not yet. You're not decomposing, so. But I thought we might as well go in order. Quincy Porter, New England composer, son of a professor of divinity at Yale. What's his music like? Let's look at the title of this piece, In Monasterio. So we are in Ecclesia, in a church right now.
That's right. We specifically chose this as a program opener, especially when we play in big churches and cathedrals like this. It feels, I know Jean mentioned this the other day, it really helps not just the musicians but also the listeners kind of center and sit our ears in a certain way that we can kind of take ourselves away from the busy week that we may have had or the busy day and all these things that keep, there's lots of noise in our lives, and that we can actually have a time to just kind of center and have that meditative start to a concert is actually very special. And as far as how Porter's music in general is, this is one of his shorter pieces that he wrote. He actually wrote a handful of string quartets. Most of them sound, how would I say, the stereotypical 20th century, early 20th century sound you would think of. However, this is very much, I want to say, almost like a neo-Renaissance sound, right? So there's definitely some, Gregorian chant notes there that you can listen to, and yeah, we love it.
Yeah, not modernism pushing itself, but sitting back in the text.
So as you listen to it, imagine, oh wait, this was written in 1927, I think, or something like that. Yeah. It does not fit in 1927's sound world, so which makes it even more special, actually. Yeah.
The next piece also has a religious connection, not quite medieval Renaissance monasteries, but the Black Church. It is Frederick Tillis's spiritual fantasy. Well, he wrote many pieces called spiritual fantasy for all sorts of different instrumentations, and there's one for string quartet. And these directly quote spirituals, right?
That's correct. Yeah, I believe this is number 12. And like you say, it's a little confusing because it almost sounds like, oh, he must have written at least 12 for string quartet. But that's not so. In fact, he wrote them for a variety of instrumentations. And I think he was in Massachusetts, based in Massachusetts, and he brings and quotes directly the spirituals that you will see each movement's name is in the title of, with a very unique harmonic language. I believe the first time we played this piece, there was at least two people that came up to me afterwards who said, "Where has this music been?" To which our answer was exactly, why have we not been performing this music more often? In fact, Mr. Tillis just passed away, I think, a few years ago at the age of 91. And he was a saxophone professor, I believe, at Amherst University or something like that.
Yeah,
very jazz
saxophonist, but
right.
Obviously with that upbringing in the Black Church and
exactly.
because one of the movements is, Wade in the Water, that tune, which we all know.
Exactly. Yeah.
Transformed in a fun way.
It's fantastic. Yeah.
So Stacy, we'll go to you now. You had a song in the Rush Hour concert 2 weeks ago. You're back. Thank you for coming. Household name in this house. Stacy is a household name. Your string quartet number 1 from the year 1992, doing basic mathematics. 1992 was 8 years ago, right? Everybody still calculates that way. Look, what is it looking back at your past self? What is that like?
Okay, so I was about 22 when I wrote that piece. That's more than half my life ago. But it really shows me, I was a senior in undergrad at the time at University of Michigan. I look at that piece and I can tell exactly where I was in my development, because the first movement is all about counterpoint and how do I lace these 4 instruments together. That one is called Rose Thorn, which actually had no story at all. I just thought the name was cool. But by the time I got to the second movement, I began realizing, no, I'm rejecting the counterpoint. I want to move in my own direction. And there was basically an internal struggle going on that you're going to actually hear externally. But I was still a music geek, and there's hexachords at work. So that's a real geeky thing. I'll just leave it at that. But they work one way at the first half of the movement and backwards in the next half of the movement. So I was very excited about that.
So hexachord, are they chords with 6 notes?
Chords with 6 notes.
Okay.
And there's 12 notes in a scale, so I use 6 notes one way and 6 notes the other way.
And 4 players on stage, by the way.
So somebody's playing too.
Yeah. And that's part of the issue with, how do you construct that in a way that will make sense for the performers. I honestly don't remember what my 22-year-old self did. I hope I was nice to you guys. The third movement, by now, I knew I was actually heading in a programmatic direction, which I find fascinating, because that's the movement. It's called Perilous Water. It's the one closest to who I am today. And I eschew the counterpoint entirely, and I just go for what is that story I want to tell, which is somebody feeling like they're going through a troubled time and then finding some inner peace by the end of that movement.
Here's a question. When you look back at your past self like that, do you see you at that age as, oh yeah, this is a legit piece of art, or do you constantly criticize, not necessarily in this work, but just in past works in general? Do you constantly criticize, oh, I wouldn't do it this way, I wouldn't do it, oh, that's kind of weak? What's the mix of that?
It's definitely true. I would not write it the same way if I were now, but it was a student piece. And by the standards of student pieces, it was actually a pretty good one. And and especially I had to own up to it, because people were programming what I called string quartet number 2, and you can't have number 2 without a number 1. And it just told me something that I never could get rid of number 1, that I loved it too much to get rid of it. And if you look at my catalog, almost nothing else dates until about 1997, which means all my student works except for this and maybe 2 others, I actually fess up to having composed now.
Yeah. I go back and look at some of my compositions, and I'm kind of like you from that day. Maybe 2 or 3 hold up. 2 or 3 I'd be proud to send out somewhere else, and then the rest I'm like, I was just trying to do some dumb joke. All right, we've talked about the American music on the program, and now I have heard the Danish String Quartet's recordings of their own arrangements, their own compositions. I have played them on WFMT sometimes, and I was very excited to see these on the program. Just set the scene for the style of music. It's kind of like nothing. It's not like nothing else on the program and nothing else in the string quartet repertoire, I guess.
Okay. I'm just like glowing because it happens to be like my favorite music of all time ever, I think. And so I'm the big nerd in Kontras Quartet about I'm the one who's always like, let's do some more Danish, please. Because I listened to this music for the first time. We're constantly looking for new repertoire. We're looking for what people are doing and what feels relevant to our missions. And so I listened to Woodworks, which was their previous album of their first release of Nordic folk songs for string quartet that were arranged by the players of the quartet, and in fact, in some cases, composed by members of the string quartet in a folk style. And I listened to it, and it just stole my heart in such a way that I continue to chase that. I mean, I listened to it this afternoon, and it always puts a smile on my face. There's something at once very familiar and satisfying to it, and yet very, very sophisticated. And there's a sweet spot for that in the intersections between classical and folk music making, where you can take an idea that you know comes from just a seed of one little custom in one small village somewhere, and elevate it to high classical art, and it works for everyone. And so when I listen to these collections of works, I hear the folk influence, yes, but they sound like very sophisticated compositions, and also compositions made by players. And so there's actually a deeply personal sensation to playing these pieces. For instance, Shore, the first one we're doing in tonight's collection, is written by the cellist. And so it sounds very fitting, and the melody of Shore is definitely a folk style tune, but he wrote it. But when I play the part, I go, he wrote this part. And we've now both played it together, you know, in different parts of the world. And so I feel a deeply personal connection in the end to this music.
And this music it's written in such a way that they're all members of the group. They either arranged it or composed it. So if there's something that doesn't quite fit, or they're in the rehearsal room, I imagine they probably just, oh yeah, but I want to put this little tweak in here. I want to put this little stylistic thing, and it just fits like a glove.
And in fact, the way they published, I've always tell people that the fact that they published these pieces as a gift, a huge gift that they have given to their community and to the world, because they obviously recorded it first and realized that people like us might enjoy to play it as well. But there are disparities between the way they recorded it and the way it's written down. So either you chase after those Easter eggs on the recording and you choose to emulate them, or you do the ink, or you do something in between. And they're so gracious. There's this notion of, you know, some artistic freedom there. If you feel a grace note and a grace note is not written down, by all means, you know, add it. And so there's some just these slight notions of folk customs that we as classical musicians are invited to that table, and it feels very special.
I'm really looking forward to seeing these performed live by a different group. So thank you so much. Just before we head off, I'll let you know what other concerts are coming up. Tomorrow's Dame Myra Hess concert from Classical Music Chicago features pianist Jack Gao. He's 20 years old. He's from China. He's playing Chopin, Fauré, and himself. That is live on WFMT tomorrow at 12:15. You can also go to the 17th Church of Christ Scientist just down Wabash there. And next week's Rush Hour concert is another string quartet event. The Avalon String Quartet are coming along the highway from DeKalb, and they're going to play quartets by Germaine Taillefer and Dmitri Shostakovich. Please join me in thanking Gene Hatmaker, Francois Henkins, and Stacy Garrop. Concert starts at 5:45. Hello, and welcome to this Rush Hour concert from the Kontras Quartet. Rush Hour concerts are made possible through the generosity of the National Endowment for the Arts, the Illinois Arts Council Agency, and contributions from individual donors. Rush Hour concerts are put on by Classical Music Chicago in association with St. James Cathedral. I'd like to acknowledge the presence of composer Stacy Garrop in the house tonight. Her String Quartet No. 1 is on the program today. And now please welcome the Kontras Quartet, violinists Eleanor Bartsch and Francois Henkins, Ben Weber and Gene Hatmaker.
Thank you.